Hello everyone. Welcome back. Today, we've got some crucial news you don't want to miss. Let's dive right into the top financial headlines and break down what's happening. By the time you're watching this, it's already Christmas Eve in the US, so let me start by wishing all of you a Merry Christmas. Today's big financial headline comes from Bloomberg, with a report titled, "Bank Groups Sue Fed Over Stress Tests, Seeking Transparency." Even though the US markets are only open for a half day today and the holiday spirit is in the air, Wall Street is buzzing about this lawsuit against the Federal Reserve. According to Bloomberg, a coalition of banks and business organizations has filed a lawsuit in federal court in Ohio, challenging the Fed's annual stress tests. They argue that these tests lack transparency and that the Fed has been secretly designing the standards, leading to unpredictable and unreasonable requirements for bank capital. These stress tests, which the Fed introduced after the 2008 financial crisis, are meant to assess the risk levels of US banks. But over the years, the constantly changing standards have left the banking industry feeling frustrated and uncertain. What this lawsuit is really aiming for is more public input on the Fed's stress test models, starting with the 2024 tests and beyond. Essentially, they're demanding that the Fed come clean about how these standards are created and ensure greater transparency going forward. The move has been well received on Wall Street, where both banks and investors prefer clear, transparent regulatory policies. This case could set the stage for a significant shift in how the Fed interacts with the financial industry in the future. The second important news item shared was 3 related news stories about Christmas. 1. American Airlines faces holiday travel glitch. Let's kick things off with some travel news. On one of the busiest travel days of the year, Christmas Eve, American Airlines faced delays due to a technical issue. Flights were grounded for about an hour, causing plenty of frustration among holiday travelers. In a statement, the airline blamed a problem with a third-party tech provider, which impacted their ability to release flights. Thankfully, the issue was resolved quickly, and operations returned to normal. This incident is a good reminder that holiday travel can always come with unexpected bumps in the road. Earlier, people were worried about potential delays caused by TSA staffing shortages if the government shut down over a budget deal. While that issue was avoided, now we're dealing with airline tech problems. If you're traveling, it's always a good idea to prepare for anything. 2. Gift-giving stress, a Christmas dilemma. The second story comes from the Wall Street Journal, and it's something many of us can relate to, the stress of Christmas gift-giving. Their article, titled "The Micropolitics of Family Gift-Giving," highlights the awkward realities of exchanging gifts with family and friends. The pressure to find the perfect gift is real. You can't keep giving the same thing every year, and half the time, you're not even sure what the other person wants. One example shared in the article involves a family dynamic that's all too familiar, a wealthy relative giving extravagant gifts, while the recipient struggles to keep up. One woman gifted her cousin a diamond bracelet, cruise tickets, and toys for the kids, but the cousin felt overwhelmed and couldn't reciprocate on the same level. Then there's the problem of receiving useless or awkward gifts. The journal shared some funny examples, like a newlywed wife who got an electric can opener from her husband, or someone who received a set of dish rags embroidered with mice. Despite the stress, the article encourages people to not overthink it. Studies show that recipients often appreciate gifts more than we assume, even if they're not thrilled about it. The message? It's the thought that counts, so don't sweat it too much. That said, gift-giving can still feel like a chore for many, and it's a tradition that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. 3. China says Christmas Eve isn't about Christmas. The third story comes from Hong Kong-based HK01, reporting on an unusual Christmas Eve message from Chinese state media. While much of the world celebrates Christmas Eve, China's state outlets, like Xinhua News Agency and China Youth Daily, declared that December 24th isn't Christmas Eve at all. Instead, they're calling it the 74th anniversary of the Chinese victory at the Battle of Chosin Reservoir during the Korean War. This narrative isn't new. Last year, Chinese media started promoting the idea that December 24th isn't about Christmas but about honoring this historical military event. It's now becoming an annual propaganda routine. The messaging can seem bizarre. Imagine if American media suddenly declared that Lunar New Year isn't Lunar New Year and started pushing their own unrelated holiday. Chinese people would likely think, what does that have to do with us? The same logic applies here. Christmas Eve is a religious and cultural tradition for many Christians around the world. It's a time to celebrate faith and family, not something tied to any particular government or political ideology. So while China's state media might try to co-opt the day for its own purposes, it's unlikely to resonate outside of its intended audience. For the rest of the world, Christmas Eve remains just that, a time for peace, joy, and celebration. Third big story, Turkey and Israel stake claims in Syria. Bloomberg reported today on the growing tensions in Syria, with Turkey and Israel both pushing their agendas in the region. The headline reads, Turkey and Israel stake their claims in Syria. Here's the situation: there's a joke making the rounds in Turkey that says, thanks to the chaos in Syria, Turkey and Israel might soon become neighbors. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but the point is clear: Syria's ongoing instability has blurred the borders between Turkey, Israel, and the conflict-ridden nation. Turkey's moves in Syria. 2 weeks ago, Islamist rebels ousted Syria's dictator Bashar al-Assad, and Turkey wasted no time taking advantage of the situation. President Erdogan has made it clear that his goal is to establish a buffer zone along Turkey's entire 900-kilometer border with Syria. The main reason? Security concerns over US-backed Kurdish forces in northern Syria, which Turkey claims are linked to the banned Kurdistan Workers' Party, PKK. These Kurdish forces currently control over a third of Syria's territory, making Ankara uneasy. Just this week, Turkey's foreign minister warmly embraced Syria's new leadership in a public meeting, highlighting Turkey's growing influence in shaping Syria's future. Even US President-elect Trump called Turkey a key player in the post-Assad landscape. Israel's actions. Meanwhile, Israel is also seizing the moment. After battling Iranian-backed groups like Hezbollah for over a year, Prime Minister Netanyahu remains on high alert. Israel recently launched airstrikes on Syrian military installations and expanded its hold on the strategic Golan Heights. Known for its fertile land and crucial water resources, the Golan Heights has become a key focus for Israel, which aims to solidify its control by increasing settlements in the area. What's next? Right now, Turkey and Israel are both advancing their interests under the guise of creating security zones, but the situation remains highly volatile. Bloomberg didn't take sides in their report, but it's clear that both nations are using the chaos in Syria to pursue their own goals. Whether it's about securing borders or gaining strategic land, one thing's certain: Syria's troubles are far from over. Fourth big story, UK economy grinds to a halt. The Wall Street Journal reported today on the state of the UK economy, and it's not looking great. The headline? UK economy slides into stagnation. Yesterday, the UK released its GDP figures for the third quarter, and the numbers are pretty striking. GDP growth? Zero. Nada. While it's technically not a recession, it's not growth either, just flat. What makes this even more surprising is that most analysts had predicted a slight increase of 0.1%. But nope, even that tiny bump didn't happen. What's next for the UK economy? Economists are now saying that the UK is likely to remain stuck in neutral through the fourth quarter as well. That means 2024 is shaping up to be a year of very weak economic performance for the country. So, what's the Bank of England doing about it? Not much, apparently. In response to this stagnation, the bank has stated that it doesn't feel any urgency to change its interest rate policy. Translation: no rush to cut rates. They're sticking with the status quo for now. The bigger picture. This news highlights how troubled the UK economy still is. And it's not just the UK, Germany's economy has already slipped into recession. For anyone trying to predict what's coming in 2025, whether it's global economic trends or developments in capital markets, these kinds of indicators are key. The world's major economies are clearly facing tough times, and it's something to keep a close eye on. Fifth big story, forced labor scandal halts factory in Brazil. Bloomberg has reported a troubling story today with the headline, Brazil halts BYD site after workers found in slave conditions. The news has sparked widespread attention from international media. Here's what happened. Brazilian authorities recently shut down construction of a new electric vehicle factory. The project, linked to China's BYD company, was stopped after workers were found to be living and working in conditions described as akin to slavery. BYD quickly distanced itself from the controversy, cutting ties with the construction company involved. But the damage to public perception was already done. The details. According to Brazil's Labor Prosecutor's Office, 163 workers, brought from China to build the factory in Bahia State, were rescued from appalling conditions. Here's what they faced. Workers who left their jobs before 6 months were denied wages because the company deducted airfare and other costs from their pay. One worker reportedly suffered an injury after being forced to work 25 straight days without a break. Living conditions were dire: one bathroom for 31 workers, no mattresses on their beds, and shifts that required waking up at 4 a.m. Authorities have since shut down the workers' accommodations. BYD responded by saying they had repeatedly urged the contractor to improve conditions but claimed ignorance of the severity of the situation. The contractor, Jingjiang Construction Company, is a Chinese-owned firm registered in Brazil. A bigger conversation. This scandal has sparked outrage and confusion in the West. For many, it offered a shocking glimpse into the reality of labor conditions tied to Chinese companies, conditions that Chinese workers may find all too familiar. Here's the irony: many Chinese netizens probably wouldn't find this story shocking. Workers in China often endure harsh conditions, extreme competition, and minimal protections as part of their daily reality. In fact, some might even argue that the living conditions described in Brazil, while deemed unacceptable by Western standards, might actually be better than those offered to some laborists back home. But why would workers accept this? For many, there's simply no other choice. If they had better options, they wouldn't subject themselves to such grueling circumstances. This highlights two truths. 1. The living and working conditions of many Chinese laborers remain dire. 2. These conditions are tolerated, not out of willingness, but out of sheer necessity. The global implications. This scandal raises an important question: can companies operating abroad continue to apply the same labor practices they use in China? It's clear that what's normal for workers in China is deeply troubling for the international community. Chinese workers are known for their ingenuity and hard work, contributing massively to their country's economic growth. Yet, they often receive little in return. Whether it's factory workers or delivery drivers, their conditions are frequently pushed to the lowest acceptable standards. For Chinese companies expanding overseas, this is a wake-up call. The world is watching, and applying China's low labor standards in other countries won't fly. Improving working conditions isn't just a moral obligation, it's essential for protecting their reputation and long-term success on the global stage. This news highlights an uncomfortable divide. While the international community is outraged, the story might barely cause a ripple within China. Closing that gap between what's acceptable and what's ethical will require not just systemic change, but also greater awareness among the workers themselves. That's all for today. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.